Wendy is not in. She's supposed to be in around 3. Yeah, but you know,
Okay. Hey, good morning.
That chair won't do that.
Y'all got all that other stuff figured out? Pretty ragged looking. Does that mean that the other?
Is it just this, it's just those chickens?
yeah.
I think Jerry's on this one. Y'all was supposed to have a call with
Y'all ready?
Ready when you are.
Okay, I'd like to call the Property Standards Committee meeting to order. I'd like to ask Councilman Nicholson to lead us in a prayer, please.
Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for our family, our friends and neighbors, and our city. Help us today and every day that we gather to do the city's business, to act in the interest of the citizens we've been elected to represent, and always to bear in mind your will for your people. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I think this meeting is important because we've got so many new things going on in the city of Shreveport, thanks to the administration and the council, when it's in relation to property standards. I think that this is probably one of the biggest steps that the city's taken in quite some time to try to ensure that we take care of all the blight and all of the horrible looking pieces of property that have been so neglected for so many years. So I think that I hope that after the next 6 months, we'll see a really big change in what the citizens see as they drive through the city. And I'd like to commend the mayor for his leadership on this, and also Mr. Green for his leadership, and all our council members for voting this in last year. So I'm excited to see what comes. Okay, do we have any public comments? Okay.
Nobody wants to talk to us.
Yep. Having none, let's move on to the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the July the 1st, 2020 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Fuller, second by Councilman Nicholson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That passes. I would like to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Green. I believe he has a little presentation, and then Ms. Scott does as well about the environmental court.
Well, no, there's not a presentation. Basically, I'll let Ms. Scott give you.
I was trying to be fancy, Terry. So I was trying to make you sound fancy. You should have just said, I've got a presentation.
just an update on the dates and whatnot,
Yeah,
and
go
where we
ahead.
are, and then I'll go from there.
Okay, we just wanted to provide a brief update on where we are. We're working to finalize some of our notices that are going to go out. We're meeting to make some final changes this Friday. We want to make sure that the notices line up with what's currently on the books with regard to the Code of Ordinances. That may require some amendments. Those will appear on the next agenda if those are necessary. But we're still looking at a start date of the 3rd week of November, which is I think November 17th. So once we have just those minor things ironed out, we should be ready to send notices and get started.
What kind of penalties, Ms. Scott, could citizens be looking at that are sent to the court?
We have a range of fines, anywhere from $75 to daily fines, depending on the infraction. Maximum, I think, is $500 maximum. So It just depends on the infraction.
Yeah. And it could go higher than that if the city has to step in and abate, because we have to figure in the cost of the contractor.
To abate the property if it's something that's,
Right.
how many right now, Mr. Green, do you suspect we'll have in the first court? Or what's the backlog like? That's a question I've been asked.
I don't have an exact amount, but I suspect we'll have about 25 cases, between 20 and 25 cases, the first two that we have. A lot of the backlogs have actually started to abate the issues. So we expect that number to go down overall. Most of the issues that we'll have is going to probably be dealing with demolitions. Another thing is we will be coming back to you guys. Right now the fees are $200 administrative fee, but we're going to have to raise that. Cost of filing, cost of cancellations and things of that nature, dealing with revenue, and also that would give us an IT source funding for maintenance of the computers and the new system that we're dealing with. So we'll be looking at going from 200 to 350. So we'll get that together for you too. Neighborhood meetings.
Mr. Green, those administrative fees are assessed when a person is found to have violated,
Right,
but they're not assessed if for some reason they're not found to have violated.
right.
Okay.
Only if we have to step in and do an abatement, or we have to involve ourselves.
Anybody else have any questions?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll just make the comment that one of the concerns that has been expressed to me about the pre-environmental court way of dealing with property standards violations is that property owners were given too many chances by the city court, frankly, to deal with their property, and that they frequently went to court and cases were continued again and again. My sense from reviewing this legislation and talking to some of the people involved is that we're going to strike a balance that is more in favor of enforcement and less in favor of endless chances.
Right.
So that we can make sure that people are properly encouraged to take care of their property. You think that's true?
Right.
And I'll just say, if there are multiple opportunities prior to the point of being summoned to environmental court to abate. So once it gets to that point, I don't know that there would be many continuances.
Yeah, well, I hope that's the case, because I think if people understand that once it gets to environmental court, that's the end of the road, we'll get the
Right.
change in behavior that we're looking for.
And also, the administrators will have that previous information. We'll also print that out so that they'll have it for the record to show a history, if there's a history with the property.
Very good. Thank you.
We have both hearing officers here today, Ms. Flemings and Ms. Ewing-Farr, or Farr-Ewing. Would either one of y'all like to add anything? Y'all excited, I'm assuming? Well, I feel like
Well,
that.
I will say this, we had our initial mock, trial 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And we'll have another one coming up. I think we planned,
20th?
what's the,
Sometime, I'm not sure the day, but prior to.
we'll have another one coming up prior to, and that's a great opportunity for anyone to come to view and see exactly how we'll be running the court.
Well, I'd like to add that, that these two officers did not require any additional funds from the city, because both of them are already city employees. So I think that was a good move on the mayor and council's part to go ahead and utilize attorneys and staff members that we already had to save the citizens money. So that's one of those steps. We always talk about budget cuts and trying to live within our means, and I'm glad to see that we did that. So
And they are doing a great job.
good. Glad to hear.
Neighborhood meetings. If you have neighborhood meetings, please invite us so that we can have Q&A with citizens and remind them that if there is input they need to give us or changes or anything that fits the sanity test, then we're open, we're listening. So we want to be available to the public to answer questions.
Okay, I've got a couple other questions, but not
Okay.
on the environmental court. Anybody else have anything about the environmental court? Okay. All right, let's move on to property standards updates. Councilwoman Fuller, do you have something?
I don't know if I have anything. I've got probably a few things to talk to you about, but I think that one thing that we wanted to address that's been discussed is a post-mortem of what happened at Highland and Kings Highway and how we can avoid a situation like that happening again. And that's the Don Seafood property.
Right. Don Seafood got out of hand when the owner did something that he knew was wrong. So that's kind of like one of those things where his negligence caused that, and the state got involved. So we basically had to back out. Our properties that we demolish, we use abatement contractors who have all of their paperwork. We have 3 abatement contractors right now, and they are all through DEQ. They have all their state paperwork, so we don't have those issues. You know, if they tell us that something needs to be abated, then we have to go with what they say. You know, and we give all 3 companies all of the addresses. All 3 get to look at it. So I mean, that won't happen on our side.
That's fine, and I appreciate that. I think where the issue is for us is DEQ came in and intervened because the paperwork was not right.
Right.
There was a lot of back and forth with DEQ and the subcontractor. That's not our problem.
Right.
Is there no mechanism for ensuring fines, repercussions of some sort on our end for that timeline being interrupted because of the negligence of the owner?
Well, generally, you cite down, not up. When they take over something, and they could have charged $500 a day, you know, and they chose not to. So, again, when the state steps in, we've got to step back unless otherwise instructed by the state or a higher source that, hey, we need you guys to go ahead on and take care of a certain thing within that. So we get out the way.
It still seems like we should have some avenue for saying, okay, well, the state has had to step in on you now, and because of that, we're still going to issue you this fine for your negligence, because regardless, it's slowing down what we here on our level have to deal with and look at. I mean, I'm not saying it's your issue. I'm just
Right.
trying to get to the bottom of why we haven't or can't do something about that.
Well, I'll just add that, like Councilwoman Fuller, I don't fully understand why we are not able to fine a commercial property owner for the condition of its property if the condition is the owner's fault. You know, I understand and appreciate that DEQ has responsibilities to ensure that abatement happens appropriately, but if an owner has an obligation to clean up property, which the owner of Don Seafood did, and then hires a contractor that is not qualified to do the job, and as a consequence, the cleanup is substantially delayed. And unless state law precludes us from doing so, I would hope that our policy would be to fine commercial property owners for that sort of behavior.
And we cited the property for a cleanup. Councilwoman Fuller and I discussed it. And this was after everything had started. We had already had it in for demolition. Demolition started, pretty much everything was crunched up on the ground. So we did proceed with the cleanup and sent new letters. And like I say, then everything pretty much started taking place. But at that point, knowing that there's asbestos there, we would have had to abate it. And that's a bill that we didn't want to pick up.
Well, and I don't, what we could do differently isn't clear, and like Councilman Fuller, I'm not criticizing what we did. I'm just suggesting that offline we ought to have a conversation about the policies that we implement in situations like this, and if we have the ability to fine an owner.
Right.
Let's do-
Differently. They pull a permit. If it is commercial, then check for the licensing of that contractor beforehand, or require that you see statements from DEQ, because 9 times out of 10 we already know that there's going to be some kind of pipe insulation in the walls. So ask for that up front with the permits and whatnot, and that would probably head off everything.
But what was
Yeah, that was
uncovered
mine.
is that the owner was
Get that.
cognizant of all of those issues when they tried to sell the property a couple of years ago, when they looked at demolishing it.
Still,
Like, all of those records
So
existed.
phase one had been done. Okay.
And then they walked away from it, and they walked away from whatever contractor they were using for that as well. And when we started going back and forth on this, and Representative Presley intervened, and it was a great help. But when we started to get into that, and we established that he was cognizant of all of the issues that he was going to be up against, like from the get-go.
yes. And still, when that contractor, because they did pull permits, if they would have had the, if we had something in place like that where we could have asked for all of that information up front, that would have still kicked it back to the owner, and he would have had to have a certified person to do the abatement and the demolition if they were going to treat it all as hot.
Chief Whiteman?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. I think that now that the environmental court is in place, I think there will be better collaboration with DEQ in this process in the future, and it may eliminate some of these concerns that we had on this particular occasion. I know that the communication was there, but I don't know how much collaboration we had with DEQ. But I think through the new system, the new processes, that should be in place.
And may I suggest something, Council?
Yes, sir.
Send, Mr. Green, first of all, send me the current status of what's going on. Councilwoman Fuller and Councilman Nicholson, if y'all can send me what your questions are, then we'll be glad, my office will be glad to research those issues, and that way we can have a more
That's almost gone now.
a more well-versed conversation about it.
It
in the
won't be the
future.
last one, though.
I know.
Thank you, Attorney Letier.
You will.
Councilwoman Taylor, do you have anything? We're just kind of talking about any property standards issues that you have. I have one that, I have actually 2 that I wanted to ask about, 3 actually. The first one is the Long John Silver's. We talked about it for just a second. And I'm trying to recall exactly what we did in January, or it was actually around Christmas, and we gave them until January to demolish it, I thought. And then there was some legal litigation.
We gave them an extension, and then they had something come up, and I remember hearing back from the attorney that something had been worked out, but I don't know where we are on that.
Right. I'll find out, because I'm not certain under the new ordinance that they would even come back to you guys.
Okay.
But let me get a status on it overall, and I'll.
I just remember in whatever meeting it was, we were pretty firm with them and said that regardless of what happens, that it would have to be in November, and now in January, and now we're in October, and it's still standing. So let us know, and then
Okay.
maybe the city attorney's office could review what we actually said, or the clerk could review exactly what we said. Maybe that'd be helpful to you.
Right.
The other issue I have is I'm getting a lot of complaints about standards of several different commercial businesses as far as cutting grass.
Okay.
That there's a lot of high grass, and I'm just gonna go ahead and call it CVS is one of them, and Family Dollar is the other one, that pretty much every CVS.
You're
and Family-
driving, yeah. Okay.
I mean, they're knee deep. So I know the one out by me at North Ferry and Southern Loop, the grass hadn't probably been cut in about 4 or 5 weeks.
Walgreens at King's in line, it's not so much grass, but just the care of premises with litter. The area around their dumpster is always really gross. But we've talked about these before. I think I've called you on a Saturday when I was driving around, and we talked about this.
do you think your officers could go into these businesses just as a courtesy and say, hey, look, y'all need to get this taken care of?
Sure.
Because it looks really, and I'm gonna say something to the administration as well. I was riding down Clyde Fant yesterday, and the expo hall, the grass is knee deep. And, you know, I just think with that being a gateway to tourism down there, we need to make sure that we cut that at least twice a week, I would think. And then, you know, there's like A.B. Palmer Park I talked to Terrence about this. I mean, it's really hard to go through Cedar Grove and tell people that their property's messed up, and we've got trees that have fallen in A.B. Palmer Park that haven't been picked up. So,
Same with Columbia Park.
I mean, we need to, you know, I don't know, and Shelley's not here to explain, so I'm not trying to, but I've had this discussion a couple of times, and I was just shocked when I saw Expo Hall being as tall as it is across from those hotels. It just doesn't look good for us.
That's the Stageworks?
Yeah, Stageworks.
Okay, not Riverview.
It used to be Expo Hall.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So if y'all don't mind kind of checking into that, that kind of goes back to the whole property standards deal, and I think it gets to a point where if you're asking individuals to do certain things and we're not doing it ourselves, it looks kind of bad. So, not to say we're anywhere close to the CVS and the Family Dollars, but Councilwoman.
Terrence, I have 2 businesses in my district, and I don't know what the city can do in reference to these particular private businesses. One is the Royal Inn on North Market, raw sewage. We also have toilets that don't flush, and they're still renting out rooms to individuals, and I'll be more than happy to send you those pictures. And Grimmie Drive Apartments, that facility has not been with hot water for an extended period, and they tell the tenants that the hot water heaters will be delivered in 3 weeks. I did call Senator Cassidy's office as well as Representative Mike Johnson's office, since they receive federal subsidies for those tenants that live there. Because no one should be living there without hot water. And I don't know what role, if any, that the city or what we could do as far as that is concerned.
Generally, we'll forward engineering and Wes.
Okay.
We'll forward it to them, and then we'll get with them and see what all each needs to do.
Okay. And the Old Church's Chicken at Lakeshore and Hearn
Right.
Avenue, for that realtor to ask them to cut their grass too. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, does any other council member have anything?
This is in, excuse me.
Go ahead.
This is in District B, but across the street from Byrd High School, there is a parking lot where the grass is knee-high, and they don't cut it consistently.
Across the street
I'm
from
gonna give you a
Bird?
pass on that because I think you own property right there. You know, you could have always brought that to me.
I own property right there.
It's on Development Street.
A few streets over.
That building has really gotten.
Well,
The old
bad
the
shape. Yeah.
Glenwood, they're not
No,
open.
the one, that office building.
yeah, it's empty now.
Yeah.
But the office building has one owner, to my understanding, and the parking lot
Yeah.
has another, and it's just the grass between the road and the parking lot that is not cut and hasn't been for quite a long time.
Okay.
So,
I feel like we've gone through a lot of the stuff that's like basically block by block around District B, and I know there's a lot of work going because people are reporting back to me that things are getting taken care of. So thank you for that. But I know there's probably another grocery list coming.
Yeah.
And I have to thank Lisa for her work too.
And Terrence, I'll get with you on Virginia and Poland Street, Portland.
Okay.
I'll get with you on those streets right there, with some properties along that way.
Okay.
Heading into Lewis Light.
Right.
Just some things that I saw, actually leaving the doctor's office coming in, like.
You got a few demolitions over there? Demolitions over there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody else have anything else?
Thank you, sir.
Chief?
You're welcome.
I think it would be appropriate, Terrence, to also give an update on our request to the National Guard
Thank you.
to assist us with demolition of some of our blighted properties. We had sent, the administration sent a request to General Wardell, the Adjutant General, to ascertain if they would be willing to assist us with some of our destruction of property needs. They have responded back. We sent a list of all of the properties that we have, which was approximately, how many, Terrence, was that? 60 some odd properties. The 225th Engineering Battalion is the ones that come in and assist municipalities. And we had brought that information forward, and we received a letter back from them today indicating that they are assessing our request to see if and when they would be able to come in and start helping us tear down some of these properties.
That's good news. Very good news.
Probably about 3 weeks, so 3 or 4 weeks ago, Chief, CAO, I'm gonna never stop calling him Chief, okay?
What is it, Chiefy?
Just in going in and making those particular requests and seeing some properties there that were in District A, there would be an element there for criminal activity, and researching this information there. So I'm happy to hear that, get the status update on that regarding demoing of those properties that would take some of that strain off of our budget.
They did tell us that it takes time, but they are assessing it.
Thank you.
Well, that's good news. Thank you, Chief Whitehorn. Anybody else have anything else?
Yeah, something we probably haven't talked about in a while is any sort of assistance or leniency that we're offering for like elderly assistance. And also, I mean, how property rights kind of goes into some of this stuff, but ultimately, what are we doing to help people that can't afford to deal with some of their property issues, but most like the elderly that may not?
I sent them to you guys.
We just deal with them through the appeals, and that's the only thing that's the only avenue we have right now, other than with the Shreveport Volunteer Network and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, what would you like to see happen? I mean, what
I don't know
could we
what I
do?
I'm just trying to make sure people realize like what, because that's something I just hear about a lot. Like, I think we're going to continue to have some tug of war as far as like annexations and stuff. The areas that don't want any part of being in the city that are out there in that ring, that want to keep things the way they want to keep them, and they feel like they have a right to.
Right. Well, and I think that that's, you know, I personally, and I'm not speaking for anybody else on this council, but I cannot see us annexing any existing homes at this point. I would see new development that's concurrent to the neighborhoods like we've discussed. I don't foresee us going into neighborhoods that are already existing. So I don't really see that that's an issue. I think just as many complaints as you get about infringing on property rights, you'll get just as many complaints from the neighbors saying that those violators are infringing on their property value and property rights. So I think as a city, it's a fine line that you have to walk, not to take somebody's property. But I think that the biggest thing is maybe we need to work, or the administration and Mr. Green needs to work on maybe having avenues for the elderly or the indigent, people that can't afford to repair these properties. And it's just something, it's not because of neglect, it's because of monetary reasons, that they may have inherited a house and lost a job. And I'm sure that there's got to be something out there that we can do with that.
Yeah, and I think some of those mechanisms are in place through our community development. I know we just signed off on a bunch of work for Paint Your Heart Out. And those are contractors that's going in and assisting the elderly and getting those homes refurbished a little bit, doing some needed repairs. And so I think we just have to reach out to Miss Bunny Moore and see what is available.
Maybe at the next committee meeting, we'll invite Ms. Moore to come and maybe talk to her a little bit more. 211 has some bill assistance stuff, but I don't think that they really, but it would be nice for us to get a lot of people on the same page, because, that's we're we're looking at chronic violators with the environmental court, but the other aspect of that is just people that can't afford to keep their property up.
Yeah.
I think that was something that we discussed, am I not mistaken, probably about several weeks ago concerning that.
Right.
The elderly as well as the disabled, and creating an avenue for them. And I spoke to Ms. Moore probably last week, because that's a consistent pattern within District 8 for sure.
Right.
Where you have those that need support, because I think the environmental court want to go after those literally repeat offenders that just refuse to take care of what it is that they need to take care of. We always want to make sure that we have some avenue of protection for senior citizens and the disabled. That's a given, or for individuals that have fallen on hard time, but you see that they're trying. That we want to look at that. That's one of the reasons that I asked, and it's a whole different subject, if the city had a full-time grant writer, because I think there are a number of things that we're probably missing out on as far as dollars and other avenues that we need to look at that will assist all of our departments. So that's for another discussion though.
Yep, that, in the next committee meeting, if we could have Ms. Moore here, I think that would be, or anybody else that you think could bring something to the table would be nice.
And I'm sorry, I don't know if this fully addresses your concerns, but there is a provision right now that extends the period of time to pay for citizens that are 65 and older, if there says cost on their environmental court. So we may look at amending that further to cover a larger scope.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
So something that comes up in my district with a lot of the historic properties that we have, and a lot of times people want to do anything they can to salvage them if it's possible before they have to deal with a demolition. You end up with someone that'll have a property that they acquire after the previous owner just basically delays the game and does whatever they can to not have to either mitigate the issues or demolish the property. They'll even have the Historic Preservation Commission get involved to say, oh, well, this has significant, this is a significant contribution historically and aesthetically, so we don't want you to do anything to it.
Right. But
But it's actually an eyesore with a caving in roof and asbestos siding. But what happens is you get the new owner who ends up getting punished for intervening into that situation or insinuating themselves into the situation unbeknownst to them. And then they get, a flag on the door saying, we need you to demolish this property or you're going to be up against these fines. And they find out it's going to cost them $17,000 in the middle of COVID. And that's money they may not have right then to do that. And then they say back, there are all these dilapidated properties around this neighborhood and we're trying really hard to do something or to contribute in a positive way. Why are we being punished right now for trying to do the right thing when these other people don't seem to be held accountable?
Well, we're doing one at a time, and all I can give is the facts. The timeline is there, and that's why I told them appeal it.
Do you find that you have things where some things are not, I know that you all are going nonstop. I know Lisa's driving around all the time and I get the reports back when there's significant issues. I call y'all all the time. But do you get certain things that come to your attention because of a neighbor that decides that they want to complain and raise a flag on it and now something is on your radar that wouldn't have been there before?
Yes, all the time.
And it creates inconsistencies in how we deal with these issues.
Right.
So in a way, it's just kind of not being neighborly.
Well, yeah, that's your area. No, I get
But it happens all over the place.
It does.
It's the reason that people move into areas with homeowners associations, so you have a certain amount of rules to play by.
I think, and I did refer him to Miss Bunny also.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not speaking just about that. I'm giving you an example that sounds specific, but it's a universal issue, and I'm not worried so much about them and the issue they have. But the other thing is kind of true. It's like, what about these other properties?
Right, and in most cases, just like this one, it was addressed. Ownerships change. It falls off the radar for a minute, and then, like you said, it comes back up. I'm dealing with the same thing in Councilman Nicholson's area right now.
Well, hold on. Let's pivot, because I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the other issues.
Right.
Do you all explain to the public, do you have a running database of issues
As far as,
Any property, if I call you right now and say, for example, the property on Dalzell,
Right.
y'all know about that property.
right,
So I can pretty much go block by block through any part of District B, and if you all have flagged it before because of your ongoing inspections,
Right.
you can pretty much tell me what's going on with that property and what their status is. So that nobody can really say, all these other properties are out here, no one's being held accountable. The actuality is, no, they are, but the timeline on it is long because
Right.
these processes are drawn out. I guess that's what I'm trying to drag out of you.
Normally what happened, when a citizen called in, they call in to our main number. Our receptionist take that information and log it in. She'll pass it on to the supervisor and the inspector. And each time someone called in about that property, it is logged in. So there is history.
Y'all have, and I think that's what people don't understand is, you'll have the history, you'll go and you'll do the initial, because this is what happens is when I write you all, I get back the history of what's going on with it, where they are in the process, what they're slated for. And I don't think that the public understands that each piece of that has more bureaucracy behind it,
right.
more processes behind it.
And let me say that IT, we have invested in some software that they are going to implement that's basically going to address that issue.
And that's gonna be GIS, right? It's gonna be a GIS program.
Right, and it will show where and whatnot so that they can see progress. They will have a certain level of access to what we have going on.
That's awesome.
I don't remember the specific name for it. I can get that for you.
Something with blocks in it, right?
Right,
Yeah. And that's
So-
gonna actually address some NPC issues as well.
right.
Awesome. That's what I needed to know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not mad at you. I'm just
Oh, no,
saying,
no.
a lot of times the public doesn't know, and they say, well, I see all these issues, why are you coming for me? And it's like, well, actually, we got them too, but you won't know that until we go through and kind of break it down, what it takes to go through these
Right.
issues. Okay.
Now that we're talking about homeowners associations, what about my burned up house in that, the one on North Ferry, or North, what is that, Harder's Crossing?
Okay, trying to think what street, but anyway, on that particular one, it's a builder is trying to buy that house so he can rehab it.
Okay,
He's the builder of the neighborhood.
okay.
He's the guy that built some of the houses out there.
I think I know who you're talking about. I'll give him a call. I mean, how long do we think we're gonna give him to, because that house has been burned up for 2 years now, probably.
Yeah, but you don't know that house is burned up unless you go around the side of it. I mean, for the most part, it's like I said, I drove by it
Missed it.
and missed it, a couple times.
But now that we've got the yard taken care of,
Well, yeah, you see it now.
Yeah.
But we'll give the builder a call because you have the information.
Yeah, I have a phone number. I'll get in touch with him because the last time I talked with him, he was dealing with the homeowner,
Right.
trying to sell it.
she died and they had heirs and some
And then,
other
yes,
stuff.
so that's where we are, but I will make contact and get in touch with you.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, anybody else have anything? Mr.
Just
Green?
that we appreciate y'all.
Yeah, we really do.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Green, you have anything you want to add?
No.
Thanks for all you do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're
You're very
welcome.
responsive, and I will say this, Chief, that whenever I call Mr. Green, he's immediately on it and has me an answer, sometimes even on weekends, so.
Sometimes on weekends. I
Yeah.
literally was walking down, I was just walking, to go get ice cream, and I passed by somebody there and snapped a picture of it and sent it to him on like a Saturday afternoon. He's like, I'll get it. We got it.
So, thank you. We appreciate what y'all all do. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn.
Sweet.
We'll start the public safety meeting promptly at 11 o'clock.